What's up, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of 2023 of The Dumbest Timeline. And much like we've said before, we will say it again. This isn't the darkest timeline.
No,
It
no,
just
no.
happens to be the dumbest one. And this week, once again, we have the first return guest and someone that I'm very happy to start the year off with. We got Angela.
Well,
Miss
hello
Gabot, how
there.
you
Well,
doing?
I'm doing great. Well, Happy New Year. I don't know if it's too late
Happy-
to wish Happy New Year, but I'm wishing you a Happy New Year nonetheless. Wishing you a
It's
lot of success and health and joy and all the good things this
It's
year.
the first one of the year, so I don't think it's too early for anyone who's tuning in and listening to us. They're just like, it's the end of January. Yeah, I said this was going to be when we were going to do it. We would do it in January, but I didn't say when in January. And trust me, I needed the break because being in the dumbest timeline weighs on you.
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. Oh my
you
God.
you guys aren't going to hear this, but we already had a 45-minute discussion of just talking about the
So many
dumbest time.
things.
So
So many
many
things.
things,
So many topics for this
so
year.
many. But we narrowed it down to one
Yes,
that you sent me recently that I thought this topic was potentially fake and had to look it up on Snopes
it
because
is
I was
not.
like, this can't be real. And then I always forget, no, you live in the dumbest timeline. Of course these things are real. Angela, do you
Yes.
want to tell us about our good friend over here?
Oh my God. Hello,
Oh yeah.
everyone. Okay, so this 45-year-old biotech CEO, which in all fairness, I haven't really read up a lot about his company and what he does or whatever, but this is what he
Right.
does do. So he's been paying a slew of doctors
Yeah.
to make him younger, like make him physically younger. And so his and there are other articles online for anyone listening, watching, whatever, however you're tuning in. There's a whole bunch of articles about all the things that he wants to do, but basically he wants like a younger, like lungs, heart, penis, anus. Yes, I'm saying these words because this is
Yeah.
really what he wants. Like all of
Yeah.
these things, he wants a younger version of it. So we are officially, I know as humans, we've been doing this for a long time, like trying to be
Right.
younger. It's a thing, which we'll talk about in a moment, but this is what he's doing. And he spends up to $2 million a year. He has a strict diet, solid and liquid diet. He does specific exercises and he succeeded. There's certain things that are already younger. Like there's a couple, I think in the
Uh,
article it says that like
I
there's
know.
something that's like a 37-year-old or something.
Yeah, so Bryan Johnson is 45-year-old, but according to a new report, his test results show he has the heart of a 37-year-old and the lungs of
Yeah.
a young adult.
Yeah. So
That's the one that
initially,
actually the
go
young
ahead.
adult lungs was the one that I was just like, "That's kind of crazy."
Well, via
To
exercise, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, yeah,
I thought initially when I saw the headline because I shared this on my IG stories. Initially, I thought that he wanted, and maybe that's the next step. Initially, I thought
mm,
he wanted surgery to get
right,
a new heart, a new lung, maybe a penile transplant or something like
yeah.
that. Like I thought that that's what it was. I didn't initially realize that it was
But
via exercise and food or
I
whatnot, but that's probably coming.
I will say this though, headline culture wanted you to think that because I
Yeah.
did see the
That's also
original
part of the
headline.
dumbest timeline.
Yes, yes. Headline culture, which is another conversation that I want to have, and I've probably mentioned quite a few times on this show. The headline itself, the original headline that you had seen, and I think
Shared.
you had sent me, made it implied that he was looking to have with a team of 30 doctors, cent millionaire looks to have a better, and then it listed all the
Oh,
organs,
yes. Yeah,
which
but so I
didn't.
really thought it was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, surgery."
yes. Because in my
But
head, I didn't because and that's more a factor of like common sense. How do you de-age body parts, like organs? Because that's not a common thing that we discuss in culture that you can de-age your organs. So the first thing when someone starts to say they want 18-year-old, they want to have the 18-year-old body, you start to think, oh, well, you're just gonna
are you
Frankenstein this.
yes, that's
Yeah.
really what I thought, but I think
Right.
at this stage, like, again, I'm 100% sure that eventually it'll come down to that,
Facts.
to getting
Yes.
those lung transplants or whatever. In the meanwhile, that's not it, and he has this website called Rejuvenation, which you're showing now,
Yeah.
Rejuvenation Olympics, and there's a board, if you scroll down, there's like a scoreboard, and he's on the top there, and he's the
Yeah.
one scoring the best, so we have all of these other people that are doing that as well. Listen, I have opinions. I have
Yes,
opinions.
let's
This is the thing. I think that since the beginning of time, like the reality is, and especially I think as you get older,
Mm,
you start realizing that, hey, I'm not going to be here for that long. You actually start realizing that you're not, that life is really short. Like that saying that
yeah,
life is short, it's an actual
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah,
It's an actual
yeah,
thing. Life is short. And so I think that even if you look back historically, even in the time of like Vlad Tepes, if no one knows who Vlad Tepes is, he was like the inspiration for Dracula. He
yes.
was in Transylvania. You should Google him.
Mm.
He was like Romanian, and he
Medical condition, right?
I don't remember if he had a medical
Okay.
condition, but I feel like he did crazy ass things. Like he would have like these wooden spears in his backyard and he would impale people. He was known as Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes.
Right, right, right,
But
yeah.
it was also at the same sort of time and era where he was like obsessed with blood, I think. And maybe I'm getting this whole story wrong and I'm mixing it with someone else. But I do remember at that time reading about people who would like, and maybe not him, but like
Mhm.
lay in a bath of blood and things like that. Again,
Right,
trying to keep young, right? Trying to keep
right.
young forever. So humans are obviously obsessed with this because on average, and back then people didn't live as long as they do now.
Of
Like
course
the
not. Yeah,
fact
yeah, yeah.
that we live as long as we do, there was a point where we were having children when we were 12, and
Yeah,
like your life is done by the time you're 18, you're a senior
yeah.
citizen. So I get that we do that. That being said, I just feel like there's a long list of ethical questions that pop up in regards to that. And also, I feel like with anything, humans are idiots and they take things to an extreme. Like we're very smart, but we're also very stupid.
Right,
And
right.
then it's like sometimes I feel like we live in idiocracy, that movie. You remember that movie?
Yes, I love that movie.
Right? So I feel like
I didn't think we
sometimes
would use it as a guideline, but I
apparently that's what we're doing. There's a lot of things in that movie. If you haven't seen the movie at home, go and watch it. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things that are a little too similar to what we're living
yeah,
now. But
yeah,
all that to say that, like, I just feel like there's a lot of ethical questions that raises, and I feel like it's going to end up being something crazy. It's going to go to
yeah.
the extreme, and all of these rich people, because this is not going to be something for poor people or the
No.
commoner or the common person. It's going to be rich people that are going to go out, and then all of a sudden, there's going to be. It's already happening where there's like organ people buy organs on the
Oh,
black
black market
market.
organ is a
Black
big
market
thing.
organ is a huge thing, but now if
Yeah,
we wanna be younger and yeah, we're doing the diet and we're doing all of that, the reality is that a lot of people are too lazy to do the diet.
right.
Too lazy to do what
Yeah,
he's doing. First off, it costs around $2 million a year, so not everyone has the money, but also
right.
even if you do, not everyone is gonna wanna eat healthy and do the exercise. He's actually putting in a lot of work into this.
So, I will give him credit for the fact that he's doing a lot of work. I will also point out though, one of the things I thought of this morning, because when I was trying to think of talking points for this whole conversation, one of the things that really bothered me was when I saw one of the articles say how many doctors he's working with.
Mhm,
And it led me to think like I understand, and I've made this comparison before, that the wealthy are essentially the modern day dragons because
mhm,
they hoard the wealth in a way that they hoard wealth and resources in a way that is insane, unimaginable.
mhm,
And that was what the stories of long before are about. Like the dragon, this person who sits on a pile of gold and protects it and just has their hoard, and they just
mhm.
don't want anyone else to have it. And then you start to think of the people who are wealthy who do similar things. And to me, the idea, and don't get, I'm sure that these doctors can have other things they can do, and I'm sure getting paid this much money can give them the freedom to hopefully do better research, and
Yeah.
even if anything for the
Because it
doctors
is
to,
an advancement for science. Like
right,
this is actual
100%.
studies. Like I get that.
I just hope that these doctors are as good-hearted as I want them to be. That in doing this research and getting all this money, that this research is something they look at and they go, "This is something we should start helping people understand how they can live longer, and we should give this to everyone." And what and like you were saying, what the big major concern is that not just that, Bryan Johnson is doing this project and throwing 2 million at it, but these doctors who are getting wealthy from doing it are also going to be like, well, why would I help people in disenfranchised spaces and other areas when these wealthy people are going to keep throwing money at me to do it?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that at some point they're going to go like, well, maybe we should take the money from the rich and help the disenfranchised people in other communities and build so that everyone can live longer. But I'm so concerned that's not where it's
Well,
going to
that's
go.
I don't think I don't think that's gonna go that way.
I know, it's
I think
probably not, which is
it's gonna go in a way where, like, we'll know the studies, the information is not probably not gonna get passed down, right?
right,
Like, fully,
right,
properly, and then after that, I feel like it's gonna go into a situation where it's like, well, now we know that eating like this and exercising like this reverses aging, which I think is
right,
fantastic, great, but then also now we can also get all of these transplants, and then there's going to be, and this is going to sound awful, but we all know, like in India, like those
mm,
organ black market is a really big thing. There's actually, you should
yeah.
Google it, there's a town in India that has a crazy name where like a lot of body parts come from that town, like people, like I've
Oh.
seen a documentary about like full families who have given their kidneys and no one has a fucking kidney in the family because they've been selling it to these
Yeah, these, like,
really
black market
rich
businesses, yeah.
really rich people that have a disease and they need a new kidney and they're paying money, not even good money, to these people
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
still living in this town. It's not even
Well,
like you're giving your kidney for a better life. You're still in there.
yeah, you're still in the place that yeah, and you know what's crazy when you say that? Because then you think about, like, even just the documentary, that Chris Rock did, was it called Good Hair? Where they
Oh,
do
I
the
haven't seen it yet and I really want to see it.
so
Yes.
that part of that story is that how all these women are going to a temple in India, shaving their heads as part of a religious ceremony,
Yeah, and
that
then it's
that
being
they're being
grabbed.
told, and the hair is being taken and sold to be
Mhm.
washed and turned into weaves
And
to then be
Indian hair is expensive hair because it's really nice hair.
yeah. It has, like, this silky texture and all this stuff, and it like, to hear and that's the thing, that the fact that we're already doing that is what makes me realize that, you know, when like you're saying, if you can take from a an area that is underdeveloped, and what are the things you can first of all, if you were at least paying them, if
Yeah,
you were at the very least paying these people for their hair, I'd be like, okay, you're still taking advantage of them, but at least they're getting something. But you're not even paying them.
no.
You're tricking these people into thinking that this is part of a, or even if it is part of the religious, take like to take the
But to
hair.
take it from a religious thing is an awful bad karma type of thing.
Yeah,
It's
because
not okay because
it,
these
the
people think they're giving it to
yes,
a god, a
a
deity,
power,
whatever it
yes.
is, and it's being sold. That's not good.
And like, or again, if you at least told them we're
Yes.
doing this with the hair, but again, there's no, and it comes down to that magical word, consent. There's no
Mhm.
consent to what you're doing in that situation, and you know what, fingers crossed, I really hope this isn't what happens. But like you're saying, when they start talking about this black market transplant industry, and Brian Johnson is not doing it that way. Brian
No, no, no,
Johnson
no,
is
no, no.
trying to
Brian
do it
Johnson is not,
right.
but we're just thinking what's
But
gonna happen in the
yeah,
future.
our concern is that some people, like you said, will not wanna do the work to get to where Brian Johnson is,
Mhm,
and because we've talked about this on the podcast in the past, greed is the monster that feeds all things in
mhm.
this world that we live in,
Yeah,
and knowing that some people will look at the Brian Johnson thing and go, "Okay, I have the money to do what he did, but I don't wanna do the work for what he did, so
yeah,
I'm gonna see what the other option is."
yeah,
Oh, I could potentially get these doctors, and trust us, we already know that the process for doing a transplant is very difficult. We know that
100%.
like
There's
the
studies,
like
there it needs to match, there needs to be like,
yeah,
there's so many things that need
you're
to occur.
and like anti-rejection, like yes,
Yes.
but one of the things that we also know is these rich people are probably very much going to look into the research to try and minimize that as much as
Mhm,
possible,
mhm.
or they're gonna and so again, we're projecting, and I know you're probably gonna say like, but how is how as a show talking about the dumbest timeline, why are you projecting? Because so far we've seen the dumbest
It's
timeline
yes,
do so many bad things
yeah,
that it's hard not to project what the idea is. But
yeah,
let's even get back to Brian Johnson.
yes, yes.
Would you, Angela, want to throw $2 million to do this
I think
if you had it?
you know what? This is the thing.
Mm,
It's a difficult question.
mhm,
I think it's a difficult question because I think that there's so many factors that you
right.
have to take into account. Would I wanna do it? Okay. right
You
now.
being you, looking as young
Yeah,
as you look, by the
okay,
way.
yeah,
So
yeah, because we were talking about that. I said, "We all know no one that looks like us." If
yeah,
you are listening to
yeah,
this podcast and you're not watching us, we both look tanned all year round.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you
I
look
gotta
like
say,
us, we don't crack.
yes, I gotta say, if you told me that Angela Bassett was already had the heart and lungs
Listen,
of someone 18 years
listen,
younger than her, I'd be like, facts, because Angela Bassett has looked the same for as long as I've seen Angela Bassett. The only thing they do is put a white wig on her to make us pretend that Angela Bassett is older, and we're all like, "What do you mean?
Angela Bassett,
What do
2
you mean
seconds,
Black
how old is
Panther's
she now?
mother?"
She's 64 years of age.
God damn. She
64 years
Angela
of age.
Bassett is out here playing the Ramona in Black Panther and looks like she could play Storm with
Well, you know what?
Chadwick.
I
Like we all
recently
know.
watched Strange Days. Do you remember
Okay.
Strange Days? Stranger
From
Things.
with
No, Strange Days, Strange
the
Days
one
with
that
Angela
says
Bassett.
with spelt days is spelled differently, or am I thinking
No,
of something else?
no, it's a movie
Okay.
with, Ralph how do you Fiennes? Fiennes?
Oh yeah, Ralph Fiennes or Ralph
Yeah,
Fiennes or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ralph and her and
Okay.
Juliette Lewis,
Okay.
and it's set in the future in the year,
Oh,
I think 2000 or
oh, got it. Okay,
2012,
I gotta go
whatever it
watch
is.
this.
You have
Gotta
to
go watch
watch
this.
it. It's a crazy movie. She plays in it. Please watch it like this week or the week after. Please
I
watch it.
will. Yeah.
And let's talk about it after. But yeah, she looks as young as she did then, and that movie came out in like 1999 or something, and she
Easily.
looks exactly the same. Also, sidebar, and we'll come back right to Bryan Johnson. I
Yeah.
worked on I've worked for TIFF on red carpets, like managing red
Dope.
carpets, and I got to meet like I was with Oprah and Viola
Oh
Davis.
wow.
Viola Davis, I just looked it up, is 57. Woman looks like she's 43. Like
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
again. So Bryan Johnson, you're doing this because you don't look like us, and you need to try
Yeah.
to look like us. Number one.
Let's just
Uh,
like if you guys are watching this, we're just gonna put him back on the screen for a second. And this is not us making fun
no,
of
no, no, no,
him.
no, no,
It,
no.
it's
No,
just that
he's just making fun of himself at this point.
yeah,
He looks a
this
little otherworldly, is what I'm gonna say.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you can tell already when it comes to his face, like either he has been had work done because he doesn't
Yeah.
look
He looks
old.
a little smooth.
Yes, everything, and I don't know if that's photoshopped intentionally or if
We
it's
don't know.
actually his skin, so I won't say, but either way, why would you present yourself this way in a story about trying to regain your youth? Because like, or better yet, make sure that everyone running the story shows me a before and after. I need a before and
Oh,
after
you know what?
picture.
That's a good point. We should get a before and after. But
I'll try and find one,
you asked
while
me
we're
if I
talking.
would do it. I think so 2 things. I
Yeah.
don't think that I would go to this extreme, but I also am speaking as someone who is comfortable with aging.
Mhm,
And
hmm,
and so I think that we
that's an
need to
important
tie
part.
this in with our culture with aging and how we see aging. And I think that it's okay to push the envelope and what he's doing for science is an important thing,
Yeah,
right? I do think that from a science perspective, it's an interesting thing and it's important, but, for me, like, again, I've never knock on wood, like, if I were someone who had a cancer or something like that,
right.
would I do that? You know what? I might. I might wanna do that and try to be, quote, "younger," and because maybe my relationship with aging is now different and I wanna do
Right,
these things. But
right.
myself, Angela Gabot, also looking the way that I do now, no. Now,
Yeah,
does this story inspire me to do some research and make sure that my diet is on. If there's anything that as commoners, as peasants
yeah,
should take from this story is that it is yet again proof that what you put inside of you, how important that is and how
yeah,
that makes a difference. That's what I gather from this story is that
yeah.
this is a man who hasn't, it seems, I don't know, have
Mhm.
had any surgeries, right?
No,
Like no
from
heart
what I understand.
transplant or lung transplant. Like you got your lungs to be the lungs of an 18-year-old by doing a series of vitamins and a specific diet and exercise. Wait a second, you're onto something. So I might
Yeah,
not have the doctors to do that, but now again, it's just a confirmation because I don't think we put, why are we putting all of this? money into this, but we're also not putting money into educating people. There's a big lack of education in terms of like how good nutrition, how important
Yeah,
nutrition is. And that's why, like, I don't feel the need to do this. I think aging is a privilege. Do I
mm,
want to live as long as possible? Yes, I do, as
yeah,
long as I'm healthy.
yeah, I was gonna say,
But I don't need to do what he's doing. I don't need
yeah.
that.
And that, funny enough, this whole thing brings up an even bigger comment about, once again, greed, because we know that the food pyramids that they were teaching in schools was something that was influenced by all the different not the different
The
companies, but the
different
different.
sectors, the farming
Yeah,
sectors,
the different farming
dairy and all of
sectors,
that.
yeah. So, when doctors it wasn't created by doctors, it was created by businesses who benefited from selling the idea of this diet to people. Because I remember the first time I went to my doctor and started talking to my doctor about nutrition, and my doctor was just like, "Oh, well, because I was just like, well, I'm eating like rice and vegetables, and he's just like, yeah, but how much rice on your plate, and how much vegetables, and how much protein?" And finally, he was just like, "Yeah, your ratios and what you're describing to me are
Is
off. Like, and West Indian families, it's just like you don't need a piece of bread with your chicken and the rice and the
Oh my
veggies."
god. My mom used to say to us, she would get angry at my stepfather, who is a white man, right?
Mm,
And my mom's like from Dominican Republic. And
right.
she used to tell my stepfather all the time, bread is not food. And she used to tell us too. Like when we would be like, oh, she'd say, are you hungry? And we'd say, yeah, oh, we want pizza. She's like, that is not food. She's like,
Yeah,
all of this bread, what is it with this bread? Like, this
yeah,
is before people were even talking about bread.
yeah.
I grew up in a household where my mom was like all of this bread and this sugar. She's like, that's not
Just
food.
carbs, carbs, carbs. Yeah,
Carbs,
yeah, yeah,
carbs, carbs. She's like, "And, like this, that's not the way that we should be eating." So,
yeah.
yes, these are things that are important. But would you do this? Would you, if you
I
had the
mean,
money and all of that, would you do it?
I want to believe that I wouldn't do it. That because I'm the type of person that large sums of money, I just want to be able to like live comfortably. And then what I have extra, I'm just like, this just feels like so much. Like I don't need like the idea of giving stuff away, but taking into consideration that if 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 I was doing this and I'm paying for the research that could help other people, if I looked at it that way,
Yes. Yeah.
then I'm okay with doing it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I would be okay with like, okay, I'm gonna be the guinea pig and but the caveat to my thing is at the end of it, I want this information to go out to the public. That
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that to me would be the most important part. I just want to bring him up,
Yeah.
bring up Brian's picture. So
Yeah.
this is Brian in
Oh,
2017.
you found him. Oh,
So this is him in
wow.
2017. This is him in 2022.
He does look smoother.
He does look
But
smoother,
we
and
don't know though if he's had, and I'm not saying he's had, I
right,
feel like there's a possibility that he didn't have Botox or
agreed.
anything like that. I
Yeah.
feel like this type of guy is like, "I'm doing it for the science.
Yes, yes,
I'm pushing the envelope." He looks
yes,
like a
yeah,
pushing the envelope type of guy who probably dresses like, Mark Zuckerberg and just has a series of T-shirts lined
yeah,
up,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he wakes up every morning naked and does his yoga, and he's like, "I'm doing it for humanity. I'm doing it
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
people." Is I really don't think he has Botox. That being said,
yeah.
I'm really into like mushrooms and bees. Like,
Okay.
like I've been taking like not magical mushrooms.
No, yeah, yeah.
That's a whole other podcast about me and my 20s. But like mushrooms, like extracts and things like that. And there's a lot of books, obviously, where people are like now finally saying, like, yeah, mushrooms are awesome. Yeah, we've known this for a long time. It's
Yeah.
just that big pharma does things. But that's again, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe that there's a lot of natural things that haven't been
Oh,
pushed out
uh,
because there's
we
a
don't have
profit.
yeah, we don't have to be conspiracy theorists to understand that in a capitalist system, the system can't just give you things for free.
No,
They have to create a way to make a profit from it. So knowing that, when you look at how, medicine and science is structured,
yeah.
like the science is funded by money. The so
Yes,
to make
yes. So
more, they have
there's a
to.
thing. There's
Yeah.
a circle, a wheel there. But I like
Yeah. And
when I
it's
look
and
at,
we
no, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
I feel like people need to acknowledge that like the science that we are following does not benefit from curing everything.
No, no,
And
exactly.
and as long as we understand that, if you're okay with that, that's one thing.
No,
You shouldn't necessarily be okay with that, but that's a whole other conversation that you'd have to try and change the system.
but it's like the common cold. How is it can I swear on this podcast? Is this a
Yes, of course.
swearing? How the
Yeah.
fuck is it possible that we don't have a fucking cure for the common cold? And
Yeah.
yet we're going through a global pandemic giving vaccines
Yeah.
and I'm pro vaccine by the way, but how
Right,
is it
right.
possible that we have vaccines for hepatitis? For how
Yeah.
is it possible that Magic Johnson still has HIV/AIDS and people live with
Yes,
HIV/AIDS now
yeah.
forever, which I'm so
Yes.
excited and
You live
happy about because I grew up in the
yes.
'80s. So I have
Oh,
my
yeah, same here.
idea of AIDS is a complete like the fact
Yeah.
that you can live a full healthy life, not even give it, by the way. You can
Right,
have
right.
sexual relations
The
and not pass it on is
the viral load in your body is so low
low that it's
that
not
it doesn't
detectable.
transmit to someone. Can
Isn't
you
that
imagine,
miraculous?
Angela, if we could tell these kids about the '80s and the scare of
Are we
HIV and
gonna
AIDS
are we gonna talk about that for a split second? Because
split
I
sec
have a funny story about this. I have a funny story.
yeah,
I grew up in Washington Heights, in
right.
New York City, at the height when I was young, I moved to
Yeah,
Canada when I was younger, but, like, I vividly remember because that was a point in New York City where there were 2 things that were rampant: AIDS
yeah.
and tuberculosis.
Oh,
So
interesting.
growing up, within the homeless community, there was a lot of
Right.
tuberculosis.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And my mother, being the wonderful Latina woman that she is, she would say, Angela. She would say, Angela. She would say, I was petrified when I was a kid. I thought when I was a child that I was going to die of either AIDS or tuberculosis.
Right,
Because my mom, because back then we didn't have any, no one knew. All we knew is that there was this virus that was very active within the gay community as well,
right.
right?
Yes.
Which that's what it was
Predominantly,
called.
yeah, yeah,
Predominantly, that's what was happening, and we didn't
yeah.
call it LGBTQIA+ and all the things. It was the gay
Right,
community is what it was,
right,
and it was rampant. But also, I had a cousin who died of AIDS. She was in her 20s. She had kids, and she was a drug addict, and she unfortunately
right,
was sharing needles, and she died of AIDS. And that was like,
right,
what a woman dying of AIDS. That was
right.
very much, and
Yeah,
people
yeah.
were
That was yeah,
whispering. But my
yeah.
mom used to tell me, like, okay, don't share a glass with anyone at
Right.
school. You can get AIDS. Don't
Yeah,
don't kiss anyone. You could get AIDS. I remember my mom saying, if you have a friend that's bleeding in the schoolyard because they fell, don't touch it. You could get AIDS. It was
yeah,
crazy. Like I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my God, like I was gonna
And
get AIDS from anything. Don't share a chapstick. AIDS.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
everything was fucking AIDS. And then to that, she added tuberculosis, where she would say, if you're walking on the street and someone coughs, cover yourself. Tuberculosis.
Right.
I'm like, I'm fucked. I'm gonna die of
Yeah.
AIDS or tuberculosis. By the age of 12, I'm gonna be gone. But that's what it was like. Everyone
That's
was
what it was like.
scared.
Yeah, yeah.
People by the hundreds. If people watch the show Pose, it's a fantastic show
I
by
haven't seen it
FX.
yet.
You have to watch it. And
Yeah.
it's about the AIDS epidemic in the '80s within the gay community and that ballroom drag life.
Oh,
And
interesting.
people were dying by the hundreds every
Yeah.
day. And it was absolutely awful what was
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So I don't even
It was
remember what we
definitely
were talking about that.
it was, oh, well, because we were just talking about how, like, if we haven't found a cure for common cold and
Yes,
all this stuff,
yes,
and then we've gotten to
yeah,
the point where the viral load for HIV is so low that you can have intimate you can be intimate with a partner and
mhm,
not transmit it to them, but the
yes.
common cold still exists because it is more beneficial
Well,
to capitalism to sell you every
because
remedy for the cold.
NyQuil makes a lot of fucking money, right?
Yeah,
And Buckley's
right.
and all of these things. And also, I don't think people realize that when you're taking these meds, it's to soothe your symptoms. It's
Right,
not to
exactly.
cure your cold,
Right,
right?
right.
And that's the thing. So pushing the envelope, doing it for science,
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
And before we wrap up, it's funny because I feel like when we both saw this headline at first, we wanted to make fun of Bryan Johnson, but at the end of it, I feel like he's, if anything, weirdly enough, he's pointing out something that we
Mhm.
both feel as much as he's doing it for himself, and I don't know how again, I don't know if he's altruistic for his reasons, but ultimately the side effect of this is the reminder that really healthy eating,
Yes.
really healthy lifestyle, and,
Exercise.
exercise, taking into consideration proper health checkups and getting yourself looked into and stuff like that. A lot of these factors, and I know it's not necessarily the easiest thing for everybody because it depends. Sometimes you just hear comedians talking about working on the road and you're just eating at truck stops every time. I
Mhm.
get that depending on your lifestyle, it might be hard to do some of these things, but at the very least, if you can try and fit some of them in, as crazy as it is for someone to go from looking like this, where I don't feel they even look that old, to be honest.
No.
Like 5 years ago to looking like this, where they almost look kind of alienish, like those aliens we talked about last time. That what's that in France?
Oh, the Raélien.
Yeah, Raelian, yeah,
The
like the kind of
Raelians.
skinny, tall, like yeah, the Raelian look. But hey, if Brian is feeling healthier, good for him. And
Brian is feeling healthier, and Brian has 37-year-old lungs, which I don't.
right, yeah,
And so yeah, so for pushing the envelope, great. I
yeah,
You know what? Like with everything, I know we're wrapping up. Like with everything, if the original idea, my concern is just that it's always an original idea that maybe has some good intentions. And
right,
then us humans, being on the dumbest timeline,
yeah,
we just
yeah,
grab things and we
yeah,
take it to another extreme, and
yeah.
then it turns into something else. So hopefully you'll still have this podcast in 30 years from now, and we'll regroup
And we'll look and
at
see.
70 and we'll say, Brian,
Yeah,
and then we'll say, we still look good. We don't
yeah.
need any of that. How's Brian Johnson doing?
Brian Johnson will still look the same, and we'll
Brian
be like,
Brian
"Man,
Johnson's
this
gonna
really
be
worked."
like Benjamin Button. Brian
Yeah,
Johnson's gonna
yeah,
look
yeah,
12
yeah, yeah.
is what's gonna happen.
And everyone's gonna be like, "Yo, is this his son?" It's just like, "No, it's him." But then
It's him.
he won't even be able to speak because it's something else in his body will,
100%.
like, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, such a crazy story.
I'm
But
just waiting. You know what? This is the conclusion. Is this the stepping stone to Disney's you know how Walt Disney is supposed to, it's obviously
oh
not true.
yes,
How
yes, the
Walt Disney is
frozen head.
supposed to be frozen, right?
Yes,
Like, is
yes.
this the beginning of that? Are we starting this off and then, but who knows? Maybe I have a
I'm just
critique.
I
Oh,
just
go
hope
ahead.
like like Bezos and these guys don't start doing this too because I
Bezos
can't
will 100% do it
I
because
can't
Bezos
we
a
can't
whack
have
job.
all the billionaires turn into long immortal dragons. That we can't. It
We're
just
gonna
can't
be
go that
living
way.
in a world like Wall-E. You remember where
Yeah,
it's like
God.
run by a corporation
Yeah.
and everyone's gonna be traveling on a wheelchair. We're gonna be obese and
Oh
overweight, and all of these
God.
billionaires are gonna look like 13-year-olds, and they're gonna be
Oh.
120.
And I feel like that's where we should end. That's a perfectly honest and fair way. Angela, I want to thank you so much.
My pleasure, Brian.
It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I'm so happy that you got to be the first one back, and this was very interesting topic to
It
jump
was.
on. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Is there anything you want to tell people? Anything people should be checking out
No,
other than
you
all
know
the
what?
shows we mentioned?
All the shows that we mentioned. No, I have nothing that I want to mention. That I want to mention. I had last time I was here, I had started working on my own Gabot show, the Gabot
Yeah,
Show, and I put out an episode. And you know what? That life, that podcast life,
it's hard. It's
is a
hard.
difficult life. So
Yeah, yeah.
I have 8 interviews that have been done. I just got to
Oh,
edit
that's
them and
amazing.
put them out. So maybe look out for that coming up soon. And that's pretty much it. I want everyone to have a beautiful, healthy, long year. Eat right, exercise, and you
Yes.
won't need $2 million to look like Brian Johnson.
There you go. There you go. Everybody, we all got 1 year of trying this crazy lifestyle. And you know what? Let's not even just crazy lifestyle, and not
Lifestyle.
even just 1 year. Let's do this, all of us. Let's
Yeah.
try.
Yes.
Angela, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.